Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. All right, well, Chris, we did it, right? We survived yet another episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, as always. We're, let's see, 78, 79. Holy moly.
Something like that.
Yeah, getting up to the 80th episode. And we felt that really deserved an extra special guest. So, Chris, would you mind introducing the gentleman that we have locked up in the liquor cabinet?
I will not mind at all. You've seen him. I've seen him. You've seen him probably on Instagram or maybe another social media account, maybe on YouTube doing his thing live. We've got over 250,000 followers on Instagram, which is pretty heady.
Wow.
I don't know. Content creator, I think is kind of undersells him a little bit, but I consider him more of a brother in Gen X. The Gen X land world. He's a little bit, he frequently wears, I think, a made in 1970 t-shirt, which makes him a little bit younger than us, but we still fit in that, we still fit in that generation. But again, his content is fun and fresh and engaging. His original videos, his commentaries, discussions back and forth, there's almost a man on the street kind of feel to some of his stuff. But again, it's fun, It's engaging, and it speaks to us, those kids, the latchkey kids, the kids of the 70s and the 80s. I'm going to use your favorite term without further ado. Welcome to Nice Pull. John Cotrides, I hope I got that right again. Gen X Jono. Saw him on Instagram, but welcome to Nice Pull.
Welcome, sir.
Happy to be here. How are you guys?
Right on. Is it cramped? Is it cramped in the liquor cabinet down there, John?
I made some room. I cleared out all the MD 2020 you had in the back. I helped myself with some Boone's Farm. The Everclear is still there. I steered away from it because I figured it got to be at least somewhat intelligible, but I made some room.
Thanks. And I don't mean to be a dick, but thank you for not touching my wine coolers. I had the Bartles and James back there, and I was just reserving that for my party tonight. So thank you for not grabbing
no worries.
That or the Mickey's big mouth. We don't want to trip over those.
I still like those. F you.
Of course
those
you
are good.
Of course you do. Anyway, let's get right into it.
Before we get into anything, Chris, I got to jump on one thing. That t-shirt you're wearing, John, and I'm going to have to zoom in or zoom out, but holy moly, big round of applause. Good Lord. Schoolhouse Rock, and I'm trying to figure out that particular episode. Hold on, that's the guy.
So
he's on
this
top
is a what?
Yeah.
What is this? Grammatically speaking.
It
is an.
Oh man,
it's something to do with the English language.
Yes,
interjections.
Show emotion, or excitement.
That's the one.
Oh, God, we're right into it. Right off the bat. That's awesome. It speaks to us. It's so appropriate. And again, just like your backdrop, so much great stuff in there. So get right into it, John, because again, we could ask about how you got started and why you're doing this and your process and everything. But, we're talking about Gen X, and why do you think, and I'll use, for lack of a better term, the nostalgia about it, why do you think it hits differently than any other generation? Because people, and again, we can talk about your kids and our kids and everything else, and the pull, and it's just like, it hits, it lands, it's out there, and it's appreciated, and we thrive on it, and we love it, and we're proud to be a part of it. Why do you think that is, though?
So people are nostalgic for the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, even if they didn't live it. kids today, I will do reactions from younger people in their teens and their 20s that just routinely say they wish they could have grown up when we did. And my tagline is, if somebody came along tomorrow and said, I can magically make you young again, but here's the caveat. Instead of being born in 1970, you have to have been born in 2005. That way you can be young. You can be 20. I wouldn't do it. Everyone who's lucky gets old. But not everybody got to be young when we were young, and I think that's where the pull is. The fact that we grew up in that bridge, that chasm between no tech and all tech, when parents were forced legally to watch their kids and when they weren't legally obligated to watch their kids, when parents stayed married for the sake of the children, and when they said, you know what, I don't like you that much, and society no longer cares whether I stick around, so see ya. Everything changed for us. It was a pivotal moment in history where technology, sociology, relationships, everything changed, and the laws hadn't quite caught up yet. People ask me all the time,
Right.
well, if you loved it so much, why don't you raise your kids like that? I'm like, because it's illegal.
That's right. That's right.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, we now have a thing called CPS, apparently, that
Yes.
frowns on
We had it
neglect.
then,
Sean, do they
but
call
if
it
we
neglect?
threatened to call, our parents gave us the phone and said, you'll get about 2 numbers in. So
Yeah. First of all, nobody knew CPS back then. They existed, but was that part of anyone's vernacular? If you said, I'm going to call CPS, you'd be like, what is that? What is
Yeah,
that? Is that,
yes.
what even is it? Yeah, we wouldn't know.
We
Yeah.
all had those strange kids in the neighborhood that even by our standards were just like something's going on at that house and in that family, but nobody did anything about it,
no,
right? It was just you didn't see it on the news. I didn't feel bad about it at all. It was just like, hey, if I get to come home after school and nobody's home, or if I spend all day in summer and I can like, put my feet on the couch and eat ice cream out of the container and watch Huckleberry Hound until that was a good we never thought, boy, we're neglected or we're missing out or you're not paying attention to me. It was
it's
just how we
so
lived.
weird. I often say it's not the what that matters, it's the why. Like, we all have seen so many memes about the fact that we drank out of garden hoses, the fact that we
Mhm.
came home when the streetlights came on, the fact that existed a commercial that said it's 10 or 11 p.m., depending on where you lived. Do you know where your children are? That was all the what. It was the why that really made everything different for us, though. And the why was that everything was changing. And it was changing so quickly that we got to live in just an incredible time where just enough technology was squeaking in that we had amazing movies. It wasn't the movies of the 30s or the 40s or the 50s. We had special effects. We had
Mhm.
great makeup. We had some awesome practical effects. So technology was moving enough to give us great movies, great music, awesome television shows, best pop culture in history. And then it kind of
Mhm.
jumped the shark as everything does. After the 90s, it jumped the shark, but we lived in that minute where everything just worked. And it's movies, it's music, it's TV, it was fashion across almost any particular category you want to think of. 70s or 80s or 90s did it better than any other.
I was laughing when you said that famous PSA spot. Do you know where your children are? Because all I could hear in every single home back in the 70s or 80s when that was asked on TV was the parent going, "Huh? Uh-uh." Right? There was
I'm just
just
like,
a collective shrug.
right.
Do you know where Annette
Yeah.
is? We don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they're on to something else. Yeah. Nobody
Yeah.
cared. Yeah. That's so funny.
Exactly.
Well, that's what
Ex-
should chill your blood, though. Again, the what was the PSA. It's the why that should make you stop and think, what the hell happened?
Right? Yeah.
Well, I can remember, and you probably could too, John, in the sense it's like, going out to, if you went out to dinner, if you were fortunate enough to go out to dinner with your parents or to any sort of event where your dad might have knocked down a couple at Budweiser's and he didn't cut himself off. Like, well, hey, I'm driving the family wagon and I've got all three kids in the car and my wife, where it was like we all just kind of lived on the edge because nobody thought about it. Nobody talked about it. And but again, we survived it, right? So whereas parents, when we became parents, yeah, 30 years later, it was hopefully it was much different in most cases, I think.
And I don't know if it was a horrible idea. So we were the experiment. What would happen if you left children to their own devices? So in the 40s and the 50s, Leave It to Beaver, mom was predominantly home. I'll get boomers. I've got almost 1 million followers on my Facebook page, and that's the one that skews a little older, primarily because it's Facebook. And I've got a lot of boomers that God bless them. I think they're awesome, but they'll chime in and say, hey, we were home alone too. And I'll push back a little and say, statistically speaking, you weren't. If you grew up in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, statistically speaking, the facts will say mom was generally home.
Mhm.
After the 90s, the 2000s, maybe mom wasn't home, but daycare was a thing. Things shifted. We were the great experiment. And I don't know that it was a bad thing. Definitely Darwin had a little to do with it. We're a small generation for a reason. Some didn't survive the experiment. We lost so many kids, they didn't know what to do. They just threw pictures on milk cartons. They're like, what else can we do? Throw it on CNN? Not there yet. How can we get people's attention? I don't know. Breakfast.
With the
Right?
cereal.
The
Exactly.
brief moment when somebody's in the same room with somebody else. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we all had this friend, right, John? I'm sure you had some where the neglect was so absurd and over the top that you always had the one kid where I don't even know if he has parents. Like every time I'm at this kid's house, there is nobody there. It's just this kid. Like,
Mhm.
do you? And you didn't even want to ask. You're like, I'm not going to mess this up. This is awesome. But like, does he have parents?
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Especially that kid whose maybe parents were divorced, because that was like
Maybe.
then the freedom they had was extended across 2 households, right? Because it was when they were at mom's or maybe the weekend at dad's, and it really
So
took
I had
on
the
a life of
benefit
its
of
own.
being both first generation and Generation X. My parents are Greek. They came over here from overseas. They knew nothing. They were the easiest people to trick on the face of the planet. They had no clue what the hell was going on, and I was in no hurry to teach them. Now, part of being Greek is we also owned a diner. So when you say the kid whose parents are never home, that diner was open from 5 a.m. until 11 p.m. My parents were never home. They were working. We grew up in the diner. We'd run there after school, get a bite to eat, go run the streets, go back for dinner, go run the streets. We were those kids.
Go run the streets. I like that. We didn't go play in the streets. We ran them. That's awesome. And your dad and your mom the entire time are just going, if you say so, John.
No report card this year? No, mom, they canceled report cards. So strange.
So so as long as you had all your limbs, right, all your
Sure.
fingers, everything was okay. They came home, the house was in one piece, and, imagine
Yeah,
it
because
probably
we
that
weren't
was
allowed to be in it, Chris. People will challenge me on this. They're like, "No, no, no, we were allowed to be in the house." Well, good. I'm glad you were cherished treasures. We weren't. My mom would clean the house, and she's like, "I want to find it the way I left it, so stay out."
oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's
That
a
is
legitimate concern. Yeah.
that
Your mom. Yeah.
that is
I don't think that's
awesome.
a lot to ask. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Um, I wanted to ask you something, John, something I've noticed just a little bit of, and this happens on social media. There's always going to be a wave of something new. And then, of course, what happens next? The other wave comes this way to try to get rid of that wave. So I've noticed a little bit of pushback now on Gen X. We came in early on social
Came in
media
hot.
with the younger kids as, oh man, these guys, they're invincible. You can't F with Gen X. These are the true original badasses. And now there's a little bit of pushback like, were they though? I mean, and almost like an effort to try to cancel. Yeah.
Part of that, I think, is a misrepresentation of who we are. I think we get lumped into with the boomers an awful lot. Like, people will say things, and I'm like, "Yeah, no, no, I wasn't alive then. I don't know how old you think I actually am."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other part is, listen, there's no generation that is all one thing.
Mhm.
Call them Karens, call them whatever you want. There's a part of every generation that is less than cool. And unfortunately, sometimes they're the loudest of those people. So we had that period of time when on TikTok and maybe even on Instagram, they Gen X started to rise up. They would put like an X over their face, and it was not a good look at all. Uh, but it happens. But they can't deny that we are absolutely, undeniably the coolest generation. When they do push back, half the time they're talking about the boomers, not about us.
That's a great point. And you I think you mentioned so many things with the pop culture side. When again, with everything that the TV shows and the movies and the music that we listen to that is pretty much timeless. And even our own kids, I know Jeff's kids, I think you've talked about your daughters, they respect it's like for some reason both of my kids know 80s songs, they know groups, and they don't push back too much when we're
No.
pulling it up on streaming because they respect it and they understand it.
So here's
Yeah,
the
but
trick.
Chris has like a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, don't you, Chris? Your kids are young. What is going on with you? By the way, that's a whole different story. What happened there?
Our,
Jesus.
our youngest is 14, so I'm there with you, Chris. I
Okay.
got young
All
ones in the
right.
house.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Think back to 1985, okay? You were a teenage kid listening to music. Thinking back to that era, could you name 5 songs you listened to from 1945? 2? 1. Kids
1945.
today, yeah, but kids today listening to 80s music, that's the same time span. It's 40 years. And the difference is our 40-year-old movies today are still cool. Our 40-year-old music is still hitting the charts today. Our
Mhm.
40-year-old movies are either being remade or pushed back into theaters exactly as they were, and they're filling up those theaters. That's the difference. Our stuff, I think, Chris, you said it, it truly is timeless in a way that it's never been before.
I do remember 3 songs, though, John, from the 1940s that I did quite like. I think it was I Got Me a Nickel, Happy Sassy Sal, and I think the other one was By Golly, She's Got Gams. And I think those 3 were
Okay. Good
pretty big.
stuff.
Pretty big back
Yes.
then, man.
What
Yeah.
well, those might have been Glenn Miller or Benny Goodman. I know those names. I know nothing about them.
Those might also have
Uh,
been fever dreams after I read the Sears catalog. So I don't
that
know.
that
I'm not
that
sure what
might have
happened.
been.
Yeah.
That might have been.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, it is. And Jeff talked a little bit about the backlash. And I saw John in one of your reels a couple of days ago where people were very profane in their Gen X sucks or Gen X is this and that. And
Yeah.
I love your approach and your tone because I think you know you come off. It's your perspective. You come off as a little, it's part, it's kind of satire. It's part righteous indignation.
The kids get angry when they see we had stuff they feel they can't have. The biggest pushback against Gen X is this perception that we were able to afford homes and they never will be able to. I got my first home at 30 years old. It was a starter home. It was 1,200 square feet, not in the neighborhood of our choosing. We bought a house where we could afford to buy one, and we bought what we could afford to buy. What the kids don't realize is, yes, we agree with them. We understand math in a way that they don't seem to be able to. We understand that the cost of living is much higher today than it's ever been. That, I'll have some boomers and Xers say, well, we made $3.35 an hour, you're making 15. 20. But the buying power of the 20 is still less than our 335. I concede that point.
Mm-hmm.
What I won't concede to these kids is that anybody said it was going to be easy. Would you trade in respectable housing for polio? Do you want to be drafted and sent to Korea or Vietnam?
Uh-huh.
How does World War
Right.
II fit for you?
Right.
Do you want to be
Yeah.
a teenager living in Japan at the end of World War II? You
That's
can't
right.
cherry pick a good thing out of time and
Mhm.
say, I want that, and ignore everything else around it. And
That's
that's what
right.
they're trying to do. They think we grew up in these magical times.
Mhm.
We didn't. We had other challenges. They'll have theirs. We had ours. Suck it up. That's usually my message.
That-
Yeah, I want those same kids to understand, like medical, especially, man. You said polio. I don't know why I'm laughing at the polio. I mean, I literally made me laugh. That's not good.
But you knew some old person that wore braces on their legs growing up. I remember it.
Right. Some of them are still in Congress, unfortunately. But I think, I know you made me think for a second. What would I trade for polio? Maybe an Atari at this, or something. Probably not, actually. But I mean, I think that's. So, do you ever worry when we think about these things? And again, you're giving like history lessons, that verge into like American history, but then you're merging it with pop culture history. Do you ever worry about crossing a line between being funny because your stuff's engaging and it's hilarious, and can you get up to the line where it's like get off my lawn again? Do you ever get
Yeah,
that
I don't ever
close?
want to be. I love these kids.
Yeah.
I bartend one night a week, predominantly to still be out there. So I'm a content creator. 24/7. It's what I do for a living. It pays my bills. It pays my mortgage. It's an amazing life. I never thought I could be this blessed to have MacGyvered my way into a career that I never saw coming. I put it together with chewing gum, a paperclip, and duct tape, but here I am. But I still bartend one night a week, and there's a bunch of kids at the restaurant and bar, and I'll quiz them and I'll talk with them, and I come from a place where I love this generation. When I
Mhm.
make fun of some of them, I always say this is the loudest minority in the history of time. But yeah, I don't worry about hitting that line because at the end of the day, I have affection for them. And I always finish with, we're not doomed and neither are they. They may be doomed today, but they'll figure it out. Life is an unfair, impartial, and has a 100% batting average when it comes to teaching lessons. Life will always win. They will figure it out because they will have to figure it out.
That is a
Yeah.
great point. That
Look,
is a great point.
now that we've kind of taken this to a little bit of a serious bend, which we should, because these are interesting issues as you go from one generation to another. I wanna follow in that theme, John, and ask you something equally hard hitting. Why were super old people always cast in live action kid shows and Disney movies back in our day? And let me give you some examples, right? You're turning on the TV, you're a kid, it's Saturday morning. Maybe you're watching Lidsville. Why? Why Charles Nelson Riley? Why do we have to cast a super old dude for a kid's show? Why Witchy Poo? How old was that chick? 80, 90? The Lost Saucer, the Jim Neighbors and Ruth Buzzy. That's who kids appealed to back then, right?
I
Even the
know Captain
monkeys.
Kangaroo was
Captain
another.
Kangaroo.
But how old was Captain Kangaroo then? Because you know what? If you told me he was 70, I'd believe you. If you told me he was 30, I would believe you also.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between.
I'm
You
not
know.
sure that they were necessarily old. Filterless cigarettes and bourbon for breakfast with no SPF ages a person. You know, Mr. Roper, Mr. Roper was 54 years old on Three's Company. He looked all of 90. So I don't know if they were, but if they were, I think it's because it just presented this image of the kindly old person that's there to help us. And you know, grandparents were a safer image for us than parents. Parents beat the hell out of us. So if you put somebody up there that really looked like our parents, we probably would be always trying to back away. But the grandparents were a safer image. They didn't hit us as often.
Yeah, I
I
wasn't
get it.
expecting an actual answer on that, so thank you. That is a very
You made it
very
logical.
a very interesting perspective. But I look at like Disney movies, right? You're a kid, you're going to the theater back in the day, and you're going to watch what Flubber, and it's Fred McMurray. That's my role model, Fred McMurray, or
Mm.
Joe Flynn, or
Or
Slim Pickens, and Forrest Tucker, and Larry
Eddie
Storch.
Albert.
Like,
You know, we were going.
what is happening? Maybe you already answered it. That was a comfort zone for us.
I'm really wondering how old Fred McMurray was in Flubber. I'm betting you he's 10 years older, younger than any of us.
I'm sure you're right. I, I just found out that Red Fox, from Sanford and Son, was only
Yeah.
19. He was only 19 when he started filming that. I don't know if you knew that, John.
Well, one of
Yeah.
those memes, again, the one that came across my timeline again, it was, All in the Family, and they were, Gene Stapleton and Carol O'Connor were like 48 and 44.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that was a hard 48. You know what I mean? Because
I'm telling you, dude, sunscreen. Maybe don't smoke so much. Maybe bourbon for breakfast. Like I said, not the best idea. I don't know. Life was tough, and that's the other part of it. Life was hard on these people.
Or to your point, if you're going to smoke, have a filter. Unfiltered Lucky Strikes is probably not the way to go.
Dude, it's not even if you're gonna smoke. Somebody was always smoking. So 24/7, you were ingesting cigarette smoke. And that's just at the doctor's office. I mean, it was everywhere. I quit smoking 6 years ago this month. And
Wow.
I'll look at pictures. I smoked a pack and a half a day
Oh,
for like
jeez.
30
Oh my
years.
God. Wow.
And I will look back at pictures from 10 years ago. And first of all, my skin is this weird grayish yellow color. My wife's like, my God, you look 10 years older in that picture than you do today. It's not, cigarette smoke is not your friend. And there was a lot of it back then.
Wait, hold on a second, John.
Surgeon
Are you
General should put
Oh
a
my
warning
God.
out
I
on
can't
this.
imagine looking like
Are
you
you
have
saying-
jaundice
Hold on, everybody.
24/7. That is crazy.
Or at least, yeah, when you're having bourbon for breakfast, at least have it on the
Mm,
rocks, and dilute it
yeah.
a little bit so you're not drinking it neat straight up to the point where, getting a little water in there. Um, so John, we talk about. I mean, again, you're a content creator. That's 24/7 job. When did you realize? I guess you didn't start out that way. Obviously, you got a bit. I understand. I think you have a finance background, and
I
and
do.
and so when did that become your thing and you realize, "Man, I'm connecting." Was there a moment? Was there a particular
So
response,
they
or
were
was
2 things. COVID was a time when many, many people suffered. I get that. A lot of people got sick, people died, horrible. Best 4 months of my life. Absolutely amazing. I'm sorry for the deaths. I have empathy. For me personally, first time since I was 9 years old that I wasn't working. I'm like,
Mm,
"This is amazing. Wait a minute, there's another check in the mailbox? What the hell is this?" So, my kids were healthy, thank God. My wife
mhm,
and I were healthy, thank God. We don't have elderly people living with us. We're as close to elderly people as we get. It was a minute that we got to take a break and breathe. And like a lot of Gen Xers, that might be the only minute between 9 and death that we had to take that breath. Because a lot of us are going to be working until the morning of our funerals. So
mhm.
I was in banking, they shut the branches down. I
Yes.
was home, didn't know what to do. My youngest wanted to go on this thing called TikTok. My wife's like, "No, I don't want her on there." I'm like, "Well, she got nothing else to do. I'll go on there with her."
Mhm,
And we were just having some fun. And at one point, she's like, "Dad, why do you think your generation is so tough?" And I turned the camera on myself, no prep, no editing, no nothing. And I said, "Because we grew up on playgrounds designed by people who must have hated children." you know,
unquestionable.
Unquestionably. These things were baking sheets pretending to be slides, murder go-rounds, jungle gyms that were like a Price is Right Plinko, but instead of the disc, it was us falling down onto the hard asphalt.
Oh, man.
We had parents that didn't care where we were or what we were doing. They certainly weren't coming to all of our sporting events. We used to have to call, collect, and beg for a ride home, and then when that ride home didn't surface, we would hitchhike. And our parents didn't care that we hitchhiked. They just assumed we got home somehow. And the video went nuts. And I'm like, whoa, that was kind of fun. And we just started doing it a little bit and it just really took off. And I really didn't ever want to put a tie on again. So I started
Mhm.
bartending full time nights to be able to play with this during the day a little bit. And it just took off. I mean, I right now I'm at about 2 million followers cross platform.
Wow.
We get about 30 to 50 million views a month cross platform again. And it's just some platforms skew older, some younger. But the bottom
Mhm,
line is, I honestly believe it's not even about the nostalgia. It's not about the Breakfast Club or Michael Jackson. It's not about, Mr. Charmin, Mr. Whipple squeezing the
mhm,
Charmin, our
mhm,
commercials. It's about living in an era where we didn't hate each other so much, when we didn't know so much about each other, when we didn't know so much about the world. We didn't even know what it was we didn't know. All
mhm.
we knew was what we did know, and what we did know were these things that kept us together, the commonality. Um, I think that's what people miss. We know too much now, and I think we really want to get back to a world where maybe, Jeff, I don't ask you what your political ideology is because it's enough that we grew up in the
It
same
didn't even
era and
matter
then we
back
have a
then.
lot in
Like
common
you
and we'll
kind of
let the
heard
rest
that your
sort itself
parents
out.
might argue this guy's a this guy's a that. But even with them, it was like, I don't know. I don't remember that even being an issue when I was a kid, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was not an issue.
No,
It was
or
rude to ask someone there. I remember my dad saying in Greek that there's a
Yeah.
reason why voting booths have a door or a curtain. It's a
mhm,
private thing.
right,
You don't ask that. You don't
right,
ask a woman her age. You don't ask somebody how they voted.
right. Or you may knew about your parents because, at Jeff's point, they were talking about it, but you certainly didn't know what your friends' parents voted.
No. And to Jeff's point, it didn't really matter. And I'm not saying politics don't matter. I get that it matters. And if you're passionate about it, I love that about you. That's awesome. That's great. But maybe not the first thing you when you decide that you want to engage with the world around you, maybe just maybe don't lead with that.
Let me put you on the spot with one thing, John, because again, we talk about everything from the 70s and the 80s and the music and the film. If you could go back, if you could jump in your DeLorean and get it up to, what is it, 88 miles an hour,
88?
whatever it was. Um, if there's one day or one event or even just one part of like, man, if I could go back and live that, the summer of whatever, either relive it or experience it. Like, I'll just start as like, if I could go back and like the one thing that I didn't, oh, we did pay enough attention, but it was just like looking back. If I could have gone to Wembley Stadium and Live Aid 1985,
Oof.
that would have been, because again, historically, talk about something that's held up. Is there a time, specific day or event or like, wow?
So January of '86, I'd like to go to every elementary school in America and tell them to not bring out the TVs. Maybe leave the TV cart in the AV room. You know, don't bring out that television. Let's leave that where it is. You know, we'll circle back to Christy McCullough later. So there's one thing maybe. No, in general, I go back every day, and I know that seems like a
Mhm.
cop out.
No.
But the truth of the matter is every moment I've lived, good, bad, and otherwise, has made me very grateful that I lived the life I lived, and I'm very happy to be in the present. Every now and then somebody will say, you know, "You live in the '80s." I go, "I don't live in the '80s. I live in a brain and a body that was developed in the '80s." And would I
Mhm.
wanna go back? I'd be afraid that it isn't what I remember. I think rose-colored glasses earned over time are not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe my mom hitting me with a slipper hurt a little more than I remember it hurting, you know, as I'm looking back. Maybe some things were a little more serious than I'm willing to admit, and I like that. So I'll
Mhm.
keep the past where it is, and I'll just keep reaching back occasionally and try to drag certain parts of it kicking and screaming into this century if I think that those things could help people today.
Well, and I don't know if this is selfish. Maybe it's poignant. I don't know. If I had a time machine and I could go back, John, I've said this many times, it wouldn't be to go kill Hitler. It would be to find a way to get with Deborah Harry. That would pretty much be
That is just
my
such a
only
scary
goal.
visual.
So I might just be, maybe I could just teleport into Studio 54. I don't know, hang out by her apartment, something,
Mhm.
go to a gig. I don't know, man. Is that selfish of me to not try to rewrite history and
I
save
mean,
No.
mankind?
I
Okay.
wouldn't necessarily mind being a pool boy, present in the filming of Fast Times scene with Phoebe Cates. That'll tell you my era.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. I mean, is there something that, again, so taking that opposite approach then, John, is there something that, um is there a sacred cow? Is there something that you haven't talked about yet? Is there something that you're just like, "I'm gonna leave that over there," or is it just it's wide open? It's a
It's gotta
blank
be wide
canvas.
open.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, "Are you afraid?" You know, "How many videos do you do?" Well, I post between 3 and 6 times a day, every single day.
Mhm.
I do, like, 3 or 4 videos every single day, and they're like, "Why aren't you gonna run out of content?" I'm like, "I'm a 56-year-old man. I have 56 years of days to draw from. I'll never run out of content because my content's not about the '70s, '80s, and '90s. It's about who I am because of those times."
Mhm.
Um, I think everything's open to be talked about. I've got so many people that engage with me. Some say regarding their childhood, they are looking at their childhood from a different perspective. So many people thought, and I mean, I don't speak for them, but they'll say in their words, I lived the life of an abused child. And that was very isolating. And maybe they did, but when they see me laughing about the fact that my mother had multiple weapons of mass destruction, and they realize that, you know, wait a minute, it wasn't just me and it wasn't just my parents, and maybe it's just the way things were. Not excusing it, not making us, you know, excuses for it, but that's just the way things were. And they're like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't as bad as I'm remembering, and they're able to put a different light on it. I think that's a good thing. I think we can talk about all of it. You use the word neglect, Chris. We were neglected.
Mhm.
What do kids say today? We weren't the main characters of anybody's story. We were neither seen nor heard, and unless the ashtrays needed clearing, I wasn't really even present at my own birthday parties. It was about my parents inviting their friends, and whatever dorks they had as children became my friends at my party.
And whatever present they brought you,
Right.
whether it was the right
Which
size
was
or
usually cash that my mother held for safekeeping.
I know it's not necessarily the 70s and 80s that you're living in. I get all that, and this is who you are now. But if we go back to those days, take me through one of the craziest, perhaps most dangerous, but at least weirdest, most bizarre, holy shit, how did I end up here moments
Can I
in your life?
survive?
And you survived it or somehow got through it, or you look back on it all the time and go, oh man, that thing. Holy crap.
Dude, how are any of us still alive? The common denominator, and every now and then I'll have some very pious person jump into my comments and say, we didn't all drink, you know. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad you didn't. Some of us drank enough for both of us.
Why would you
Because
share that? Why would someone? Oh, yeah. Okay, dude. Huh?
they'll come into my
Yeah.
videos, they're like, why do you keep talking about drinking? Oh, I'm sorry, because this is my page and not yours. I drank a lot,
I'm not literally
early
at
and
your
often.
house making you listen. You can go to, yeah. What? Anyway,
But the common denominator is the drinking, and there was a lot of it, and it was early. I grew up in a small town, wasn't a whole lot to do, but there were a lot of fields. There was a lot of woods, there was a lot of lake, and there were a lot of degenerates that for $3 would be more than happy to buy us liquor. Oh, and by the way, at 17, I looked 30, so I stopped needing them at that point too.
Save that
Just
$3.
funnels and keg stands and passing out and waking up in the middle of the field when I was supposed to be at Ryan's house and my
Mhm.
parents didn't care. Turning over in a pool of your own vomit. I mean, at like 13, 14, 15 years old. And then you start driving and you put that in this mess. I'm not proud of any of it. It was god awful, but my parents didn't have Life 360 to see how fast I was driving. They didn't have the ability to monitor me. I remember learning that the speedometer on the car pegs, and that doesn't mean you've stopped going faster. It means it stops tracking how fast you're going. When I was 16, the people that owned the part, we had a huge building, and half of that building was our restaurant. The other we rented out to people. It was different things. At one point, our tenant left. My parents made it a bar because my older brother wanted to get into the bar business, and he was 18. So at 18, he ran the bar. At 15, I helped him. One of my chores, my parents gave me the keys to the bar that no one inventoried and said, you have to do a deep clean at least twice a week. Now, that deep clean took me about 4 hours alone. It took me about 20 minutes with 8 of my closest friends. We are partying like it's 1999 rock stars, doing shots of Rumpelmints and Jägermeister, Pearl Harbors and Kamikazes. And a buddy of mine's like, Catrides, the door. I'm like, what do you mean the door? He goes, the door, look at the door. And I look at the door and there's 3 state troopers. That was a day I didn't think I would survive. Drove me home.
That is epic.
Told my parents their liquor license at the business that they had was in jeopardy. That 2 of the kids, the reason the troopers showed up, 2 of the kids got into an accident on the way home and told them where they'd been drinking.
God.
Dude, I didn't think I was going to. When you say you're afraid your parents were going to kill you, my daughter's like, well, they couldn't actually kill you. And I'm like, no, you're right. I have proof they couldn't because if they could, they would have.
here's the best part of that entire story. The
All of
cop
it.
said their liquor license might be in jeopardy. Maybe. I'm not an expert on the law, John.
No, we were in 1986. All was good. Don't do it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hearing that story, because John, it's like we had our experience is my dad was a wholesale liquor distributor. So we
Oh,
had a
Jesus.
garage, and we've talked about this on the show. So we had a garage full of my dad had no idea what was in there. And so what I ended up turning that into, yes, on the weekend, I would go sell that. My margin was phenomenal, right? Because I could just sell that bottle of, and kids would drink anything. I sold kids a bottle of triple sec. It's like, you really want to add something to this. But, so we had that. I had that. And then again, Jeff and I have pictures. Did we ever put them on any of that stuff? We were less than an hour from Tijuana, where we grew up. So we could get down to actual bars and sit in bars like adults and order pitchers of beer. And then, of course, get in our cars and drive back home. And much like the stuff you were doing. So, and maybe the common denominator in your experiences and our experiences as parents, I would have killed my son is 22. I would have killed him.
And we were afraid of our parents in a way that I don't think kids are afraid of their parents today. And yet we still did these stupid things. Explain that. I truly believe that my parents could kill me, make another one that looks reasonably like me in 9 months. I heard that daily, and I took it to heart, and I was still this stupid.
That's
Except they
awesome.
needed who would work in the restaurant, I guess, if they did that.
Oh,
That would
there's
maybe
that.
There would have been that problem. That's what saved you.
I'll never
What
I'll
saved
never
you.
forget a night where there's a knock on the door and I'm underage, definitely for drinking. I think I'm 17, not even 18, where you can drink in
Oh, dude, you
Tijuana.
had 5 years of experience at that point.
Oh, of course. Well, if it was you, 10. And there's a knock at the door, and my dad goes, yeah, opens it, and it's two girls that I know, and they go, hey, we're going down to Tijuana. We want Jeff to come. And he goes, oh, okay. Hey, Jeff, your friends are here. And I walk out as a 17-year-old in strange car with people going to Tijuana underage. And as I'm walking away and getting in the car, I can hear in the background, where's he going? Tijuana. As the door shuts, I'm like, yeah, whatever. My mom didn't even react. Oh, okay. I guess it's all right.
So my biggest fear as a father of daughters is that somebody would take my kids. Like, that is such like a wake up in a cold sweat fear. And then I juxtapose that with my mother. I remember calling her for a ride from community swim, and she's like, I'm busy, catch a ride. Well, I didn't catch a ride, but I was a half mile from the school, so I'm like, I'll just walk. So she knows I'm walking, and I walk in the door in like 3 minutes when it should have been 20. And it's pouring outside. And she said, wait a minute. I didn't realize it was raining so hard. How'd you get home so fast? I go, I started walking in the rain, but luckily someone pulled over. And I'm like 12 at this point. Someone pulled over and gave me a ride. And she goes, oh, did you know them? I said, no. She goes, well, then I hope you remember to say thank you.
That could have been an after school special titled "Has anybody seen John?" You know what I mean? Because it would have been
What
like
matters? Manners matter. Not don't get into the car with a complete stranger.
that
And that
Mr.
man-
Bundy. That Mr. Bundy. He was such
Yeah.
a nice man. I hope you thanked him for the
I was going
ride.
to say, Richard Ramirez
Fantastic.
gave you a ride. Yeah.
Fantastic. I've got one more question that, John, we appreciate the time. Again, we
Yeah, yeah.
the time
Yep.
differences. It's getting later in the evening for you as we record this. Where do you go next? I mean, again, you've got more than a million, all these platforms, all this content. Do you have another aspiration that you want to turn it into X? Sounds like you could write a great script about with the kid growing up in the, with the Greek diner, which we all, not Greek, but no Greek diners. We know what that's. I mean, what's next for you? Or are you just going to keep? Because again, I don't see why you wouldn't just keep doing what you're doing.
So, I mean, there's a couple things. So Fanboy Expo is a fan expo that they do Knoxville, and they have one in Orlando. UltraCon is in Southwest Florida. I've done MegaCon. I get invited to different conventions from time to time, and they'll let me host panels. I'll get to meet some celebrities. I'll get to have a spot where I can meet followers and talk to them. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. That's to be able to be on a stage with the people we grew up watching. Because for a long time, some of these cons I would go as a guest, and there'd be a 23-year-old interviewing the cast of Back to the Future. And I'm like, well, this is broken. No disrespect to the 23-year-old. I'm sure they could watch and enjoy the movie today. It's not the same thing. So I started reaching out saying, hey, maybe don't put the child, on the Goonies reunion stage. Maybe that doesn't make sense today. So there's that. I've had different people reach out. There's some interest in doing different things across different platforms, even putting together like some sort of reality show that's based. I would love to pitch a Big Brother type thing where a third of the house is millennials, third of the house is Gen Z, a third of the house is Gen X, and then maybe 2 boomers that are just kind of there with immunity. They cannot be voted out. No matter what, they automatically make it to the finals, so they're free to say and do whatever they want.
I'm going to be a dick for a second. I do not like it when someone calls me a boomer. I feel like I have just been very dissed.
And it's no disrespect to our boomer, brothers, sisters, parents, whatever. It's really not. But we did not live their experience. They did not live
Not
ours.
even close. Not even close.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And if anybody bought a home with magic beans that can now sell for $4 million, it's them, not us. But that's the brush we get painted with.
Amen.
Well, again, thank you. John Critides, Gen X Jono, uh, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever else we can find you. John, again, out at these conventions, just Google him. Just Google Gen
Yeah.
X Jono, and you will open a Pandora's box that you will not want to close. So, again, John,
Guys, my
thank
pleasure.
you for joining us on Nice Poll. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John. Well, that was fun. I think we all I think John had a good time. Again, that was a great conversation. It's interesting. Yes, we're of the same generation and we're dads and we have all this, but the experience is interesting. We didn't even get into that, but we obviously didn't grow up in the same part of the country, but we had so many similar remembrances and memories and experiences to the point of like, wow, that was just fun because I think his content, it's a lot of fun. So again, listeners, Gen X Jono, you can find him all over your social media. Good conversation, lots of fun. I think that was good time. It was a good time, a little different
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, Chris and I were worried that there wasn't another white middle-aged man who liked to talk about his memories back in the 70s and 80s. And I guess we might have found the only other guy on the
We
internet
found the third
that does
one.
this. Yeah. And when Chris said, let's start doing this podcast, I said, this is going to be revolutionary. This is going to be absolutely cutting edge shit. We are cutting a swath in brand new, fresh ground here that no one's ever even attempted. So
We're like the
no,
Wright
that was
brothers.
awesome. He's a hilarious guy, and
Yeah,
really glad
lots
to
of
have him
fun.
on. We'll have him again.
That
Well,
would be
cool,
great.
Chris. Very good. What do you think, man? Until next time.
Till next time, Jeff.
Nasty